Chapter 11. 3 coins in the fountain. I was sitting at the Bisbee Coffee Company one early morning when I saw a man walking down the street. He was slight of frame and was walking what I've always called a schnitzel dog. He had this huge smile on his face and walked with such a bounce in his step that he looked like he was at the top of the world. That was a man I just had to meet. His dog, too. Turns out that his name was Fred. I can't say I recall the name of his dog, but he was famous. He had saved a little girl's life in that small town, and you could tell he was a hero by the way his tail was straight up in the air as if to say, "I the man, yeah, I the man." A little girl had been separated from her brother while playing in the hills one day. They were playing like kids are known to do, where they shouldn't. You see, the hills down there are riddled with old mine shafts and exploratory diggings. Needless to say, with over 100,000 holes in and around the town, many are quite dangerous. The mining company even put a parking lot right on top of one of their deepest, only dumping enough stuff in the hole until something caught on the sides and plugged it. Then they proceeded to invite tourists to come visit the Green Mine. Take a tour in a real mine cart. Go into the depths of the earth and see the magnificence of secret chambers lined with precious gemstones, all for only $10 US. Bus parking is free. Of course, there was a lot of traffic on that brand new parking lot. The cars and buses came and went, shaking the ground of a hill that was already split in half by an earthquake from the late 1800s. The same quake that dried up the San Pedro River and turned what was 90,000 acres of beautiful farmland into a dust bowl where only scorpions and tarantulas survived. After a while, the plug fell into that 2,000-foot hole, along with the bus that was parked on top of it. Well, anyway, that's the kind of care that is put into fixing what these men, under the guise of a company, have done to our earth. They have turned it into a place where buses fall into the ground and children die. Only not this time. Not with Mr. Schnitzel around. She had run into a mine shaft playing hide and seek and couldn't get out. She cried and cried and cried for help, but in the earth, with all the twists and turns that the shafts take, no sound came out, and no one heard. Hours had passed. Her entire family had been combing the hills for her. The wrong hills, of course. Now it's time for a potty call. Mr. Schnitzel was agitated, dancing and prancing at the door, something fierce, so Fred let him out. Only this time he didn't go potty in the yard like he usually did. He went straight for the hills, barking the whole way. Fred, of course, followed the sounds of his frantic puppy as best he could, until he came to the shaft where the girl was stuck. The rest, as they say, is history. I guess that dog has a right to stick his nose up at folks as he walks by. He still stops to talk and doesn't act all rarefied. He still likes getting hugs and kisses and still loves his daddy to death. That dog gave something to a lot of folks, didn't he? Not just getting that girl back to her parents healthy, but he gave something to me, to you, to the town, and to everyone that will ever hear the story. Most importantly, he gave something to his master, his friend. You see, Fred came to Bisbee because he was dying. Cancer had taken over his body, and he came here to extend his life or raise the quality of it until death claimed him at last. He was undergoing treatment in Sierra Vista. About a 40-minute drive, he would go there 2 or 3 times a week and let them do what they said needed to be done. After, I would see him less and less until he came to see me at the coffee shop. I called him, and he came over. We talked about stuff. You know, the politics of small-town life. Quite colorful in Bisbee, I can assure you. The joys of relocation and the joys of just being alive. Then he told me about the people who were treating his body and the kind of care he was receiving. They treated him with absolute respect and dignity. He talked to me of love in its purest of forms. In honor of the spirit that he was sharing, I offered him one of the few remaining copies of my first book, Rio Sings. He declined, saying he couldn't accept a gift from a homeless man. He was okay. So I told him it was because of the way that the Spirit was working through the people at the treatment center. Maybe he could just give it to the one who made him shine the most. Of course, he did. Now, what exactly does this have to do with being productive? Well, that book went to the treatment facility, and I heard no more of it. I just trusted in the Spirit in the moment to take that little old $6 book and do with it what he would. It sat in the waiting room, and people read it and cried. Some laughed, some didn't, and the book stayed. One day, the head of the unit there picked it up and read one of the poems. It was a love longed-for poem called simply, To Whom It May Concern. The poem was dutifully copied from the book and posted onto her refrigerator at home, where it looked this woman in the eye for over a year. It was a reminder that love is there, if we're only patient enough and aware enough to recognize it when it comes. Once again, a year later, I followed the Spirit on a gifting circle. It started when one lady said, I'd love to buy one of these for my friend, so-and-so. Would you be able to deliver it for me? Maybe read one of the poems for her, like this one? Well, you guessed it. A friend of hers was at the college where I spent a good deal of my time and heard me recite the poem that she had seen in her friend's kitchen. She had to get her the book, and I had to read it for her. Of course, I couldn't resist. I went to her office, unaware of the connection between my friend Fred and her. At the desk, I asked for her, and she came with a polite, "This is so-and-so. Can I help you?" No, I told her she didn't know me, but I knew her kitchen. Actually, just her fridge, and only a little piece of that. At that point, I began to recite the piece that she had read every day for so long. Needless to say, the reaction was quite dramatic. She managed to catch herself before she fainted into the filing cabinets, just barely missing them as it was. So we adjourned to a meeting room. Decorum and all. Management, you know. These were the last few of my books. Carefully handmade, my supply was almost exhausted. I did not know what the Spirit intended, how the replacements would arrive, but I had a feeling a guardian angel was on her way. After all, so many people had gained so much from God's gifts to me, there just had to be a way opened up for me to receive them. That's how gifts work. My angel was her boss, who also received a set of my books as a gift. She, in turn, bought out my inventory and commissioned me to write a poem for her business, her care facility for cancer patients and their families. Then she bought $15,000 worth of books. Just like that. A cycle over a year of age, started by giving a book to a stranger while I was homeless, became a great event in someone else's life and my own. It was a tiny seed, granted, but $15,000 for one book? Don't doubt, my friend. Never, ever, ever doubt that little voice. Even if it's your last meal you're giving away, if it's your last dollar, your last gallon of gas, or even your last smile. Give it. Give it with faith, and give it with love. God will get it back to you. I promise. You see, I was given credit for those books. There are those that say I worked for them, that it is a product of my labors. I say nay. It was not a product of my labors, but rather a product of my love. The lady with the poem? She found her love through patience found at the reading of the words of a homeless man. Fred's cancer was beaten, too, by the way. No trace of any kind that it was ever there, Fred said. Arf, arf, said Mr. Schnitzel. Thank God, said the poet. And I did. To whom it may concern. Somewhere in the middle of a sleepless, starless night, someone's in the middle of a searching spirit flight. Someone's in the middle of a secret fantasy. Someone's in the middle of a dream of me. Someone has been living, someone has been good. Someone finally understands, as this someone should. Someone just now realized their search is at an end. Someone just now opened up their heart unto a friend. Someone just now blossomed in the fullness of their years. Someone just now found me out. Someone lost their fears. And when this someone finds me walking down their road, she will see the love in me, the love that's never old. She will know that I've been searching and spent my sleepless nights underneath the starless skies, dreaming of her light. I hope she finds it comforting to know that I am here. I just wish she'd hurry up. Or should I hurry there? Oh, well, I guess it's just as good, or maybe even better, to wait until that someone comes and just hand her this letter. Hi, everybody. My name is Ron Hatton, and I am the author of A Book of Life. Now, since day one, when I finished making the book, I studied about bookbinding techniques. It was always too expensive for me to have a publisher do it for me. So what I did was decide to make my own, and the result is this. Now, this is a hand-bound copy, ribbon, paper, all of that folded by hand. And if you should like to have a copy of this for yourself or for someone you love, then all you have to do is email me at gadgetman@gadgetmangroove.com. Just watch the slide. The email address is coming. God bless y'all richly and warmly, and as always, remember to smile for a stranger today. You will both be glad you did. Bye-bye.